My name is Greg Stallings, and I'm going to talk a little about the film Black Orpheus. This work is especially well known for its impact in the world of music. After it came out in 1959, the composers of the soundtrack, Luis Bonfa and Antonio Carlos Jobim, became internationally famous, especially Jobim. Antonio Carlos Jobim is often called the Brazilian Gershwin, and soon after the release of this movie, he scored a global hit with the great saxophonist Stan Getz, which many of you have heard called The Girl from Ipanema. The new musical style that this film introduced to the world was called bossa nova, or new beat. And soon artists as varied as Frank Sinatra, Dave Brubeck, and Cannibal Adderley released albums featuring Jobim's music. Jobim and the other young bossa nova stars had been college students in Rio de Janeiro during the 1950s, where they became huge fans of American cool or West Coast jazz. They began to experiment with music by slowing down the traditional Brazilian samba rhythm and combining it with jazz harmonies and improvisation. Hence, bossa nova was born. Look for recurring images in the film which serve to celebrate the new rhythm or bossa nova of Brazil. The film begins and ends with the image of a guitar. The frets of a guitar are often referred to among musicians as bars, for example, the term bar chords. In the film, the frames of the guitar frets visually relate to the constant images of prison-like bars in window frames, tables, fences, gates, bed frames, and especially over the dancers during scenes of carnival, in the form of long lines of rope and even confetti. Several times in the film, Orpheus likens himself to a caged bird, liberated by the song of Eurydice, whose music he further relates to the strings of his guitar. Indeed, bird imagery is also constant throughout the film, with the caged and free birds found in the houses where the characters live, with flying confetti, paper, kites, and airplanes, and especially in the bird-like movements, feathered hats, and free-flowing costumes of the dancers during carnival. Eurydice herself is often seen taking bird-like flight from the clutches of a masked figure of death. The implicit message of this imagery seems to be that the improvised songs and dances of samba and bossa nova provided former slaves, and eventually the rest of the world, with a liberating flight away from the restrictions of a repressive society. Another thing to think about as you watch this film is the fact that it takes place during Brazil's yearly carnival festivities. During Carnival, black people were allowed to dress up like their present leaders and former colonial masters. These masquerading activities of Carnival are akin to bossa nova. Both are temporary, improvised expressions of power and freedom within the prison-like confines of a racist society, forever haunted by the specter of death. The mythical motif of Orpheus and Eurydice is a final thing to think about, as it underscores the eternally returning theme of death, followed by rebirth through music.